The sound of steel groaned against steel. Sparks flickered as the aged circular hatch finally gave way, swinging open with a cough of stale black air. Behind it, the gaping throat of the earth waited. A long abandoned maintenance tunnel beneath the District 6, sealed since 1974, after a series of collapses that no one ever explained properly. "Are you filming this?" Jamal's voice echoed sharply, his GoPro's red light blinking. "Yeah," replied Chris, pointing his phone light into the pitch. "This is where they said the ground breathed." "Don't say that," muttered Claire. She was the one who had found the rumor on an old Reddit thread. Something about voices being heard under the old subway lines, and people disappearing into tunnels that didn't exist on any official map. The four explorers, Jamal, Claire, Chris, and Nate, had crossed rusted rail bridges, trespassed past iron gates, and climbed for over an hour through maintenance shafts to reach this hidden point. Inside the hatch, the air was wet, metallic, and heavy, like a mouth full of pennies. The flashlight beams revealed broken support beams, stone walls dripping with thick condensation, and rusted tracks that led into oblivion. They stepped in. 10 steps in, Claire froze. Did anyone else hear that? Silence. Then, shk, stish, a distant sound, metallic, grinding, like something scraping across steel, but not from ahead. It came from behind them. They spun around. Jamal's flashlight flickered. "What the fucky was that?" Nate whispered, pressing against the wall, his breath fogged in the sudden cold. I think someone closed the hatch," Claire said, running back. But the hatch was still open. Yet something felt wrong. The space behind them looked different, longer, wider. The tunnel looked unfamiliar now. "Guys," Chris said, stepping backward slowly. "There's someone there. A figure. At the edge of the flashlight beam. Still, human-shaped, head tilted. No face, just skin. Flat, smooth. Where eyes should be, nothing. No features, no mouth. Just the shape of a man. But unfinished. Then, it moved." Jamal screamed. Claire dropped her light. The figure twitched, then vanished into the darkness as though it had been swallowed. Chris turned to run and saw that the way they came in no longer existed. Just a wall of crumbling concrete and brick. The hatch was gone. Nate screamed louder than anyone. The air shifted. A low hum echoed through the tunnel. A sound that wasn't natural. As they stood there frozen, unable to comprehend how the tunnel had changed, something began walking toward them. Not fast, but steady. Thump, thump, thump. Claire vomited from panic. They ran. But the tunnel didn't seem to end. Their footsteps pounded like war drums in the narrow tunnel, echoing louder than they should have. "Where are we? This isn't the same path," Jamal cried, swinging his light wildly. No, it curved. It wasn't supposed to," Claire shouted, looking back. But there was no back. The path had curved inward like a snail shell, wrapping around them in a direction none of them remembered turning toward. The air was thicker now. It clung to their skin like hot breath. And then they heard it. "Help me." A whisper, faint, female. Claire stopped. That was me," she said, a crack in her voice. "That was my voice." "What?" Chris turned horrified. Another voice floated through the tunnel, this time raspy and hollow. "I want to go back. Please let me out." It was Jamal's voice. And it wasn't coming from any of them. It echoed off the concrete, distant yet right beside them. as if the walls themselves had memorized what they had said and were repeating it. A loud snap echoed behind them. They spun. That thing, the faceless thing, now stood 20 feet closer. Its head tilted again, unnaturally slow, like it was listening. Chris raised his flashlight, but the bulb burst in a sudden flicker of sparks. They were plunged into semi-darkness. Only Jamal's flickering headlamp remained. "Run!" Claire shrieked. They bolted. Again, the tunnel stretched, reshaped itself. Paths curved in impossible loops. Corners appeared where there had been none. The floors sloped without warning. The laws of direction, gravity, logic, all twisted, and the voices came faster now. From the walls, from the ceilings, from inside the piping. Repeating what they'd said, and then new ones. "You brought it here. You woke it. You let it in." Chris slipped. His knee slammed against a rusted pipe. Blood. Screaming, Claire turned to help, and screamed as she saw a pale hand slowly emerging from the concrete wall. Fingers stretching, twitching, feeling the air. Jamal grabbed Chris and they limped forward, but the walls were changing as they passed. Pipes bent out at wrong angles. Graffiti faded and reappeared, and the shadows. They moved on their own. Claire spun again. The faceless entity was now crawling on the ceiling, head turned upside down, limbs bending in impossible directions, watching, always watching. They ducked through an arched side passage, narrower, but no time to think. It ended at a heavy, rusted steel door. Bolted shut. "Get it open!" Jamal threw his body into the latch. It creaked. Again, bang! The creature landed behind them, silent at first. But when it hit the ground, the floor cracked under its feet. Jamal screamed and finally broke the door open. They fell through into a room they never expected. It wasn't a tunnel anymore. It was a small chamber filled with mirrors, cracked, but still reflective. But there were no reflections. Not one of them had a reflection in the glass, except for the faceless figure. It stood in every mirror, closer in some than others, watching them from every angle. The chamber was freezing, unnaturally cold. Their breath fogged the air, even though moments ago they had been sweating from panic. The mirrors surrounded them on all sides, floor to ceiling. Yet none of them cast a reflection, except one. Claire's breath hitched. In the far left mirror, she could see herself, but she wasn't moving. Her mirror itself stood perfectly still, while Claire slowly raised her hand in real time. And her reflection did not. Then it blinked. Chris turned to her. "What is it?" Claire pointed. "That one. Look." But by the time Chris glanced at it, the mirror showed nothing. Just an empty frame. Jamal approached another pane, then another. "This is wrong. This place is alive. These mirrors aren't glass. They're watching." He placed his hand against one. It didn't feel like glass. It felt like skin. Cold, rubbery, and warm underneath. Claire backed away slowly. But behind her, 100 faceless reflections moved in unison, mimicking their steps even though the real mirrors showed nothing. Suddenly, the lights flickered. All the mirrors now showed their reflections. But the versions inside were bleeding from their eyes, mouths open in silent screams, each with a slit where the face should be, like someone had tried to carve one in. One reflection lifted its hand and touched the inside of the mirror from within. Tap, 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 then another and another. Soon the whole room was filled with tapping sounds, soft at first, then louder, rhythmically pounding like they were begging to be let out. Jamal screamed and slammed his flashlight at one of them. The glass cracked, and something slithered out. Not a hand, not a shadow. A mouth, wide, fleshless, with long human teeth, grinning ear to ear. "Go!" Claire screamed, and they dashed through a narrow archway that had appeared where there had been none. The mirrors behind them shrieked. Glass shattered as the tapping became thunderous. They entered a different tunnel, smaller, damp, and filled with broken pipes. The walls pulsed slightly, like veins beneath flesh. "Where are we now?" Chris whispered. Jamal checked the walls. "We're below the maps now. There shouldn't even be space here." Claire stopped. "Listen." Drip, drip, drag. A wet dragging sound, like something pulling itself across the floor with no legs. They moved cautiously, crouched low. The ceiling dripped black water. The air reeked of rust and rotting things. Suddenly, Chris slipped and fell into a pit, hidden beneath loose concrete. "Chris!" Jamal and Claire reached down, but the pit was shallow, maybe 6 feet, and Chris was still visible. Only, he was not alone. A figure stood just inches behind him in the dark. Faceless, again, but this one was wearing Chris's exact clothes. Then, it smiled. Chris screamed, scrambled out. His own doppelganger not chasing, just watching, unmoving, as if taking notes. Back on solid ground, Chris gasped. "It wasn't me. That wasn't me." Then came the sound of breathing from the walls. Not one breath. Dozens. Like the tunnels themselves were alive with sleepers beginning to wake. As they pushed deeper, the tunnel opened into a forgotten maintenance station. Rusted lockers, a bulletin board with photos curled by age, dust-covered chairs bolted to the ground. Everything frozen in time, yet strangely pristine. Claire stepped forward and brushed off a photo pinned to the wall. Her hands trembled. It was them, standing together in the tunnel, smiling. But the photo was dated 6 days ago. "This isn't possible," Jamal whispered. "We were never here before today." The locker beside the board burst open. Inside was a bag of bones, carefully arranged. A flashlight lay beside it, still warm, still blinking. Then all lights in the room went out. When they flickered back on, they weren't in the station anymore. The walls were gone. They were outside, or something pretending to be outside. Fog, infinite darkness, and in the distance, hundreds of faceless figures, standing still, watching. Then, slowly, they all began to walk forward. The trio ran, fog closed in on every side. They passed broken lampposts, subway carts that hadn't existed underground, and fragments of stairwells leading nowhere. Claire screamed, "There's no exit!" Then they saw it. A door. Metal. Locked tight. Jamal ran ahead, pounding at it. From behind, the faceless ones picked up speed. Their footsteps now sounded like thunder. Dozens. No. Hundreds. Chris turned to defend them with a broken pipe. One of the entities got close, and its chest split open to reveal a swirling black void filled with other faces, screaming silently from within. Claire screamed. Jamal got the door open just in time, and they fell through. Inside, a single room, bare, with a mirror on the far wall. This time it showed all three of them, and behind them, reflected clearly, the faceless figure standing right behind them. They turned, but there was no one there, only the sound of breathing inches from their ears. The room was silent. Too silent, Claire whispered. It's not over. That mirror, it knew we'd come. Jamal moved toward it cautiously, waving his hand. It's just glass. Just crack. A single fissure spidered across the surface, even though no one had touched it. Suddenly, the mirror turned black. Then, a loud static noise erupted from nowhere, like dozens of televisions detuning at once. The room shook. The mirror now showed a different version of the room. One where they were still standing, but slowly rotting, time moving at a sickening speed, skin peeling away, eyes shriveling. They were seeing their own decomposition. In real time. Chris backed away, trembling. That's us. In here, dying. Jamal grabbed Claire's hand. We need to get out now. But then the door behind him disappeared. The walls closed in by inches, groaning with pressure. In the reflection, their decayed selves began to move. Tap, tap, tap. Chris turned and yelled, "They're trying to take our place." The light flickered again, and now the decayed versions were inside the room. Jamal screamed, "Run!" But there was nowhere to run. Claire slammed her flashlight into the mirror, shattering it into dust, and just like that, the room returned to silence. The decayed versions were gone, but one shard of mirror still pulsed on the ground, like beating heart. They stumbled through a hidden crevice behind the mirror wall. This new tunnel pulsed. It was breathing. The walls were no longer concrete but living tissue, veined with flickering blue light like electricity in veins. The deeper they went, the louder the heartbeat. Thump, 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 and then they saw it, the heart of the tunnel, an enormous pulsating mass of flesh in the center of a domed chamber connected to dozens of fleshy tunnels like arteries and hanging from the ceiling like puppets. Other people, some alive, some hollowed out. Claire screamed, "Those are explorers!" Jamal gagged. "This place, it feeds on them." The faceless entity appeared again, half submerged in the wall. Its body merged with the tissue. Chris stepped forward. "Why us? Why bring us here?" The entity opened its chest. Hundreds of faces swirled inside, including their own. It hissed, its voice a collection of whispers. "You were always part of me. You just never remembered." The heart convulsed violently. Suddenly the tunnel collapsed behind them. No going back. The air turned poisonous. Jamal collapsed, coughing blood. Claire dragged him, whispering, "Stay with me, please." Chris tried to break through membrane-like wall, but it only absorbed him halfway. He screamed, arms flailing, before Claire pulled him back. His skin now bore strange markings, symbols. I can feel it inside me," Chris murmured. "It's rewriting us, turning us into it." Jamal's voice changed. His eyes rolled back, and when they returned, he spoke in that same horrible whisper as the faceless ones. "Claire, you were the first heart. We've just been waiting for you to return." Claire backed away, crying, "No, no!" Chris screamed and struck Jamal in the head, knocking him out. "Run!" But the tunnel curved back on itself. There was no escape. The flesh became floor, walls, sky. They were no longer walking through the tunnel. They were inside something's body. The heartbeat echoed louder. And from behind, a faceless, infant-sized creature crawled after them, screeching, made of bone, eyes, and twitching hands. Claire whispered, "This isn't a tunnel. It's a womb." They collapsed into a circular chamber, dimly lit by bioluminescent growths. Everything was still. Jamal was gone. Chris knelt, broken. "It wanted you. You're the core. Claire, trembling, touched the floor. It lit up in runes. Ancient, unknowable language pulsing beneath her hands. The voice returned. "Welcome home, Claire." Then her memory unlocked. As a child, she had drawn the same tunnel in her notebook. The same symbols, the same faceless figure. She had been here before. She'd opened the path. Years ago. As a game. A dare. A childhood accident. That summoned the entity. I caused all this. I buried it. And now it's come back. The heart emerged from the floor, larger than ever. Chris screamed and was pulled into it, vanishing with a crack of bones. Claire stood still. Faceless entities surrounded her, no longer attacking, but bowing. She had returned not as prey, but as the mother of it all. Her face melted away, and she smiled.